The town of St. Thomas lived a glorious life and died a glorious death. It started out as nothing and eventually became submerged, part of one of the largest man-made lakes in the world.
St. Thomas is named after Thomas Smith, who was sent by Brigham Young, the president of the Church of Latter-day Saints.
Despite her lofty name,
Over 100 years.
Sky McLean is more comfortable digging her boots into the ground. The National Park Service ranger leads hikes to the fascinating St. Thomas site, which was once a thriving Old West town. It's now a ghost town in the Silver State, rising from the depths of Lake Mead, which once covered the entire valley. In January of 1865, the Church of Latter-day Saints leader Brigham Young called Thomas Smith to lead an expedition. Mr. Smith's hardy pioneer pack consisted of about 9 or 10 men and 3 women, and settled in this area to grow cotton and provide a friendly respite for Mormons traveling between Salt Lake City and Los Angeles. St. Thomas was established in a strategic location less than 20 miles from the Colorado River. The nearby Muddy River provided water that was used to irrigate crops, and an established canal system delivered water to the town.
What we're walking around right here.
Hiking the well-trod Tamarisk-lined trail for a mile or so leads to the 47 features that still remain from the lost city of St. Thomas.
So this is one of the most prominent features here at St. Thomas. This is the Hanig grocery store and ice cream parlor.
In 1870 or so, the original St. Thomas settlers were stunned to learn that their village wasn't located in Utah, but in Nevada. Lincoln County officials demanded back taxes from the pioneers, who were faced with a difficult decision to leave or pay the levies.
They had to go back to their leader, Brigham Young, and asked what to do. And so he told them they could vote, and if they voted to leave, he would release them from their mission. And in fact, that is what happened, and only one family, Daniel Benelli's family, stayed behind.
10 years later, in 1880, other Mormons returned to the area, and the town was reborn. Cisterns were dug and installed, which provided drinking water.
Over time, people were still faced with communication issues. There were no cell phones or telephones. There was no electricity. They had to communicate with each other by word of mouth or the mail that might come in. They also had no plumbing, no running water. They would go to their cisterns that held about 6 months worth of water and draw water out of the depths of those 15-foot deep wells.
Around the turn of the century, St. Thomas continued to grow, and these artifacts are reminders of the early hardships and triumphs.
This is a 150-year-old community, so a lot of things came along and went, and then settlers would return. And as the railroad arrived in 1912, that brought their abilities to actually build the schoolhouse and build the hotel out of brick. Some of the homes were built from wood. Initially, many of the homes were just out of adobe and mud, and they made bricks out of that.
About 500 people lived in St. Thomas. Streets were constructed, businesses were born, including the Gentry Hotel. And of course, town founders needed a place for education.
Well, I actually hear some school bells ringing, so I'm thinking maybe that's where our next stop should be. Let's head off here to the left, and we'll go down to what is left of this 3-story school.
The rounded Art Deco steps from the old St. Thomas School are still remarkably preserved. One can imagine students going to class in the 2-story brick building. Built in 1915, the school continued to educate students from grade 1 through grade 8 until the early 1930s. Ranger Sky McLean quotes a former student, Marva Ray Perkins Sprague.
I remember all my teachers, dear Anna Arnold, Miss Birch, and Vera Whitover, were special in my life. The many parties at school, church programs, classes, Christmas was looked forward to. Mr. Peck, a railroad official, always brought cases of huge oranges. How we eagerly awaited that treat.
Far above the crest of any other dam yet built by man, or likely to be built for years to come.
The beginning of the end of St. Thomas was Hoover Dam, The massive federal project miles away created the floodplain that would eventually submerge this valley and force residents to abandon their town, their homes, and their way of life.
People seemed very happy to live here. Of course, they were faced with the change that happened when the Hoover Dam was being built in the early 1930s, and they had to give up their lands through the appraisal process that the government established. And so they reluctantly accepted their fate, that yes, the little town of St. Thomas was going to be no more. It did take about 5 years for the waters to eventually reach St. Thomas. And so during that period, I'm sure there were a lot of discussions amongst the neighbors, but eventually many of them tore down their homes and removed them and rebuilt them elsewhere, whether that was into Overton or they just sold it off as salvage.
St. Thomas has risen above Lake Mead 3 times, in 1952, 1965, and emerged permanently from its watery grave in 2002. In fact, Lake Mead still covers the region a few miles south of the town site. St. Thomas is located inside the park boundaries of the Lake Mead National Recreation Area and is a popular spot for hikers and lovers of Silver State lore. Visit nps.gov for more information.